A very good afternoon to all the faculty, all the students and everyone who's joining us today. Today we're starting and opening up the first of the open series for semester 2. And we're very happy to welcome Tarriq Khayyat, who's going to be joining us today and speaking to all of you. And we're really looking forward to the session today. And I would request Shamil to introduce Tarriq as we start with this first lecture for semester 2.
Thanks, Harpreet. Thanks for that. I'm very happy to have Tarriq with us today. I'm glad he found time to share his experience and work with us today at this time in his busy schedule. So Tarriq is an architect and a designer. He's also visits the university, gives lectures there as well, like today. He's had 15 years of experience in delivering international projects across all stages from inception to completion. Tarriq founded his practice, Tarriq Khayyat Design and Partners, in 2019, and it's a design-led award-winning studio that gives us specific tailor designs for various scales of projects. Tarriq is responsible for the overall design, direction, and business strategy of the firm. And he also oversees the R&D aspects of the market analysis and technological advancement. TKDP is currently designing and overseeing various scale of projects from master plans to private residents in UAE, GCC, and China. Prior to establishing TKDP, Tarriq worked as a project director with Zaha Hadid Architects for over 13 years. He also had the headquarters of the Middle East office here in Dubai from 2016 and 2018. Tarriq worked on several Zaha Hadid Architects seminal projects, including the BIA headquarters in Sharjah, UAE, and the Mace Sikhu Center, if I pronounced that correct. He completed his Masters of Architecture with honors at the Architectural Association. He pursued the Design Research Laboratory at the AA in London in 2005. And Tarriq continued to lecture and being a part of various graduation juries across several UK and UAE universities. So with no further ado, I would like to welcome Tarriq to this lecture and appreciate the time that he has taken to share his experience. Tarriq is facing some issues with his webcam, so he will directly share his presentation. Over to you, Tarriq.
Thank you, Shamil. I believe everybody can see the screen and can hear me as well. Cannot hear me.
Yes, Tarriq, but we are seeing your all the slides. Could you change the?
Sorry. I will share again. Just a second, please. Can you see the screen now? Just
could you share again, please?
Can you see the screen now?
No.
Okay, I'll do it again. And now you should see it.
Yes, we do.
Perfect.
See it.
Okay.
Over to you.
Thanks again for the introduction and for the invite. Actually, this is my first time to give a virtual lecture. I'm used to the face-to-face, which are my favorite because I can see people's reaction, and when people are starting, you cannot. Can you hear us? Can you hear us, Shamil?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Because I said, like, this is the first time to give a virtual lecture. I think one of the most exciting things about lectures is the face-to-face and the seeing people's reactions. So I hope this won't be boring for you guys. Actually, in all the lectures I've been giving over the last few years, I prefer the lecture to be as much as informal as possible. So it's more a chit chat about architecture, about the journey, about ups and downs, and about things I've learned personally during the last 15 years of professional practice, and prior to that, the architectural education, and sharing some of the things I personally found that are valuable to share with the students, especially with the students and young architects who sometimes have questions and have doubts about what's next in their career and what they need to do. So I called this chit chat from A to T through Z, and I think the nature of the presentation is gonna explain that kind of title. And in this presentation, I will take you through not only TKTP work, but actually the journey from the architecture education stage of my life, and then joining the challenging experience at Zaha, and then founding or co-founding the studio of TKTP. I studied architecture, as Shamir mentioned. I did my master's at the Architectural Association School in London, and it's a very important. That was basically in 2003 when I joined that school to do my master's. This was a changing point of my life on a personal level and on my career as well. I did lots of research before choosing the school where I'm gonna finish do my postgraduate studies. And maybe it's part of my character as well, and it shows how much architects need also to reflect their characters and their design and their decisions. I picked a school that pretty much kind of, reflects the vision I have towards life. This school was established in 1847, a long time ago, and it was made as a center of progressive ideas and innovation. So basically, the school started as a bit of, a rebel architects who didn't really follow the constitutional kind of architectural practice at that time, and they were trying and experimenting in new ideas of architecture and design. And that kind of, private club, let's say, of architects developed to be a proper school in architecture in London, and it became one of the leading architectural schools in the world. And the school, it had kind of a very rich history of visitors and a very rich history of lectures through the time. I'm not sure if there's a delay in the slides. I don't know if we are looking at the same slide at the moment.
No, there's no delay. All
so
okay.
you can see Frank Lloyd Wright and you can see Le Corbusier.
That's correct. Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So the names that we've studied about in architecture since we opened our eyes, since we've learned what is architecture, they used to go there, they used to lecture. So the school over the years and years established that kind of reputation as a magnet for the leading architects in the world to give lectures there. And that kind of school, the same stairs and the same places we went to, it had the same, steps of the pioneers of architecture in the last 100 years. The same school also had one of the best architects in the world as their students: Zaha, Frei-Otto, Richard Rogers, Rem Koolhaas, David Chipperfield, Grimshaw. So it was blessed by kind of having one of the top architects in the world and one of the best talented in the world to study there. All that over the years established a certain identity and character for that school, which makes it kind of the attraction point, or the point where students would like to go there, spend time there, and try to learn from, because each of these pioneers who passed by, they left their own print on the school, whether on the way of thinking, whether on the progressive thinking of the school, and how we perceive architecture. And the school always had that kind of idea of anti-design, anti-architecture. Previous ideas have not worked. Let's try alternative life experiments, etc. And this is one of the very famous photos of the AA, one of the famous directors of the AA, Alvin Boyarsky, who was the dean of architecture at Zaha's time when Zaha was a student. And it shows how much actually staff member of faculties, they have a huge impact on the students. And I'm not talking about from an educational perspective, but actually from a vision and attitude perspective, and pushing the students to think out of the box. And Zaha always talked about how much Alvin had an impact on her, in her life, in her career, and her vision to architecture. So it's a famous It's a famous picture of him during the AA review, which is a very famous event, happens every year in London, when they have the display of their projects, graduation projects at Bedford Square, where he came in with an elephant to the school to open the exhibition. It's just kind of the idea that we need to break all the stereotypes and to have kind of an avant-garde way of thinking to the school. And also the school was blessed that even when I was there, you are at the bar of the AA grabbing a coffee or something, and then you have Rem Koolhaas next to you, or you have Peter Cook next to you, and whether you have a chat with them, whether you listen to their chats to other people, it was an ongoing process of learning and kind of pushing the boundaries of architecture. And I remember the first day when we had our orientation day at the school, where Brett Steele, he was the director of the AA school during my time, and he's now the Dean of Architecture at the UCLA. He told us that you are here to forget everything you've learned before. And I'm not saying a message to the students that they need to forget what they've learned. His message was, if you are starting a new experience in life, and this is something I've learned and I applied on my personal life and mainly on my career, on my architecture profession, if you start something new, don't start it with a certain expectations, perception, and scenarios in your head. Whenever you start a new journey at the university, at your first practice, when you start your own business, always start with a fresh heart and mind to make sure that you grasp the best out of it. And this was one of the most important thing I've learned at the school. They didn't teach us in the kind of traditional way where the information needs to be delivered to the students. I think the idea was heavily based on the research. And at that school, at that young age, I've started to realize how much research is the base of everything we do in our life. Again, I'm always reflecting this on the personal life and on the professional life. So the school was based on tutors used to come to the studios, give us the headline, the topic, the challenge, and they'll leave us. And then there's a review every now and then. But regardless how much complex was the challenge, there was always a way to find that by the end of the day, you are the only person who's able to find the solution. And I remember the first maybe 2 months of my study there, I really, genuinely, I had doubts. Am I joining an architectural school or electromechanical school or product design school? Because it was so wide and so kind of open to opportunities that made you on a continuous effort to find a solution. So the research was 24/7, and it was a competition, like again, a healthy competition in such environment makes you really discover the best out of you. And when you are put in these circumstances and conditions, you realize how much power you have and how much you have capabilities. But once we are not forced to look for our capabilities and strength, we will never find them. But basically, it becomes like a survival mood at that school. And it was a survival competition. You are surrounded with international talents from around the world. You are working with top architects, top designers, and you have the choice whether you want to join the club and just do it, or you want to step down. And it was that kind of experience of working with people who are thirsty to research and develop ideas was absolutely a game changer. And from that point, I started to question what's next in my career, what's next in my personal life, and how I need to look at life in general, and mainly our professional life, because it kind of occupies the biggest bulk of our life. So we did our research studio was based on digital experiments enhanced and empowered by digital experiments, physical experiments. So each students and a group of students, and we've learned at that school to work in groups. Architecture is not a one-man show. Architecture is only based on when you understand how to get the best out of your team members, your collaborators, your consultants. Each of us has a strength and a power. And once you know how to tap into this, you'll get the best out of the team. And this is the same philosophy I've learned working at Zaha on a bigger scale. And this is the same philosophy we are having our own studio at TKDP. Each person has their own strength. each person is different from each one, and each one has something that none of the other team members have, and how you tap into this and how you get the most out of it, that's when you have the successful creation. So our research was, as we said, based on lots of digital and experimental research. Here we see in the picture, we have Brett Steele on the left, who's the director of the AA, used to be and now director of ECLA. The guy holding our physical model, and I'm looking angry at him, is Patrick Schumacher, Zaha's business partner, with the team members around us. Our research was, our project was how to create a self-sustainable structure, which is, you can see that big model on the table. It was, of course, a prototype, and how we use FOG, F-O-G, as an architectural, non-tangible material that defines spaces. So we have to translate these ideas into digitally. It could be easy. You could write code scripts. You learn how to do it, and you find a way. And then, in the same time, how to control this digitally. So how to actually do basic stamps, and how you control robots, and how you start do basic coding to control things. So that's the point of it. Was not architecture school in the traditional terminology of architecture. It was a hub where they throw you in a pool where you have to to swim with everyone to survive. Whether you do a bit of mechanical engineering, a bit of electrical engineering, a bit of product design, a bit of mathematics, a bit of science, until you find your way and your research. And we were so lucky that our prototype and our design has been selected for the architectural review exhibition at the AA. So the entire bar studio at the AA, where all these big architects used to hang out, we created a full-scale model that occupied the entire room of our system and our design that helped us in getting a distinction at the graduation. So I wanted to touch base on that kind of educational part of my career, because students, and I'm not saying that you either go to the AA or you go to certain school or not. The point is, at any school you go to, at any country of the world, if you really fully engage your experience and fully engage your time and dedicate your time to develop your skills, this is the only way to really have a niche once you go to the market. And this is something I always tell students when I give lectures, not only in the UAE, but even in the UK or other countries. Like, architecture should be 24/7 full job when you are a student. So especially for architecture is a full-time job. Architecture is, you cannot take architecture as a hobby. So when you are young, when you are at your years of university, you need to invest in every single minute to develop your digital skills, your physical skills, your thinking skills, your research skills, to make sure that once you go to the market, you are equipped for everything. Because people will not, and I'm saying this from experience, as I used to be a staff member at Zaha and as a business owner now, people will not look for your grades at the school. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that students should not aim for high grades, but when we hire people, especially in architecture, we don't look whether they got A or C or B. We look at how talented they are, how passionate they are, and how dedicated they are. And I'm just going to give also a life experience personally at TKDP. I think we have 2 of your ex-students working with us, Sarah and Ahmad. And honestly, I have no clue what did they get at school. I have no idea about their grades. I didn't look at anything. I don't know if they passed, or I assume they passed, but I looked at their attitude and their skills and how much passion they have. For me, these are the 3 kind of success formula for any architectural student who's finishing his school and going to the architectural life. Passion, which is the key, attitude, which is also a very important part, and skills. So my advice to every single student, that spend every single minute you have in developing your digital skills. People will not hire you to be a designer from day one. People will hire you to be able to help them to translate their ideas into materialized architecture. So digital skills, very, very important, and research. And the research should be extended to every single aspect of life, not only architecture, politics, history, philosophy, because by then architecture is about serving communities and serving people. So we should always look at it from a bigger perspective than just purely designing of buildings. Then I'll go back to prior joining the AA, and even when I was 18, when I was attending a book fair, and it was different kind of books, and I saw, this was the first time I saw a picture of Zaha, an image of Zaha, and I remember like I was taken by the look, because sometimes you can tell from people's face expressions and their eyes that these people have different message and role in life. And then I started to open the book, and I've started to be fascinated by the sketches and the drawings that Zaha presented in that book, in the El Croquis. And at that point, I knew that I'm going to be an architect, because my father is an architect. He established his office back in Jordan in 1980. And I grew up looking at, visiting his studio and seeing the physical models and the drawing tables and the T-square and the ink pen and all these things. I've seen that as part of my childhood. And this definitely helped in me taking the decision to be an architect. But I always took this as he's my father. This is something, guaranteed. I will study school, and then I will go and work with him. And then when I finished the bachelor's degree and I wanted to start doing my master's, I went back and I remembered that book that I saw when I was 18, and I started to tell myself, will I be able to draw something like this or design something like this? Or will I be able one day to visit this lady's office and see how the people work there? So it's always about also planting seeds in your head early on about your vision and what you want to be. And I think I do believe so much that if you have a certain target in life and you keep thinking about it, eventually you will achieve it. And it's also a very important message about how we always need to look for mentors and people that we look up at. And this is one of the best quotes that Kazimir Milovic, who's also one of the most pioneering people in terms of art and architecture. And he's the one who also pretty much shaped Zaha's vision towards architecture. And he had this famous say, we can only perceive space when we break free from the earth, when the point of support disappears. And this gives us the point of the only way to perceive architecture in the right way is when you completely zoom out, completely. And you go beyond the context of the site, the client, the program, and you look at the holistic vision of life and how this project can be part of the puzzle of the big city and the big community and the big kind of world we live in. As I said, there was a huge kind of admiration. I was completely astonished by the principle of her drawings and sketches and how she managed to find a completely different, interesting points of perceiving architecture, things that we didn't get used to through our kind of conventional design and conventional methods of architecture. So I've joined the office. I presented my graduation project at the AA, and I was lucky that Zaha and Patrick, they were part of the jury members at that time. And I remember that I presented my project on Friday, and I've been offered the job after my presentation, and I joined Monday after immediately. And I remember the first question that time, Patrick asked me if I have a laptop, because the office was still smallish. We were around 70 people. Now the office is 450. So I joined when we were just 70. So each person should bring their own laptop to work there. So I've joined the office, and I started to understand that all the challenges and complexity and difficulties I faced at the AA were absolutely nothing. I just finished the honeymoon period, and I'm starting actually the real challenge now when I joined the office. And then there's one sentence that also basically shaped the way I looked at architecture and the way I looked about what's next in terms of vision of life and my professional career is a statement and sentence I've heard from Zaha. She told me this directly a year after I joined the office, or 2 years after I joined the office, which basically, you are here to win. And I'm just going to share a very quick story about this one. That the first real competition I led at Zaha was King Abdullah Performing Arts Center in Jordan. I'm from Jordan, so this was a very special project for my heart. This was the first kind of competition, a proper international competition for Zaha in the Middle East, and this was in 2008. It was a very tough competition, and there were lots of politics in the office about it, and we worked almost for 2 months, 24/7 on this competition. I was leading the team. We were a team of around 8 to 10 people that we literally, I remember that the last week of the submission, we didn't go home for the last week, full solid week. So I used to go maybe home once for 1 hour just to take a shower, change, and come back, but we didn't sleep at all. And we went through lots of obstacles through this competition, challenges, and then we won the competition. And I still remember I went to Zaha's office. It was a big, it was an open plan office, and I told her, and Zaha was texting every day, did you win? Did we win? Do we have any news? And then when the client called me and they told me, guys, you've been selected, you've been awarded the competition, the project, I ran to Zaha to tell her, Zaha, we won the competition finally. And she looked at me with a completely poker face. She didn't say anything. And I told her, like, aren't you happy? And that's when she told me, you are here to win. And maybe this is a bit of an extreme kind of strategy or extreme way of educating people. But actually, it made me realize that actually you need to have a winner spirit in life. I think winning and achieving your goals should not be like the ultimate, surprise, but it should be the norm. And losing and being defeated should be the exception. And I'm not saying that if we lose, it's the end of the world. We learn from our losses and from our mistakes. But I think that project and that competition gave me that kind of understanding that we are here to win in life in general, and we need to have this kind of fighter spirit. And this competition and that conversation with Zaha completely changed my perception again about how I need to look at architecture, designs, relationship with the clients, and how we perceive architecture in general. It's always about working closely with the team, working and establishing a good harmony and chemistry within the team. So we are a huge office. The office grew enormously in a few years after I joined, and I've learned something through my experience at the A and after joining Zaha, that the recipe of success is investing in the right people and building bridges and connections with the right team members around you, and working with people as your partners more than a boss staff member relationship. So I love this picture because, despite of Jerry famous loving of taking selfies for everyone in the team, but this basically shows that it's always about finding your right family within any business place to really connect with them. And once you establish that kind of harmony level and relationship with your team members, you can really achieve anything. So this was the core team we established at Zaha. This was the team I led at Zaha, with Lee, Kut, Ed, Kyushi, Jerry, and Drew. And we won every single competition we've been given at that time. We did Amman Performing Arts Center, which we won. BA headquarters, which is now under construction, almost completed in Sharjah. This is the actual team that we did it. So this is the competition team that worked on it from the day that Zaha sent us the brief of the competition. And she told me, Tarriq, we've been invited to this competition in Sharjah. Look at it if this is something worth doing. We took that brief, we started working it with Zaha. And this is the same team that carried the project all the way to the site. Of course, after that, Lee left before me, then I left, and Ed left, and Yushi left. But we are the team who worked on this project for almost 5 continuous years. And the most important thing you learn about this, that once you establish a harmony with the team and with the people around you, and you have a bit of social intelligence of understanding people capabilities, honestly, there are no obstacles in design. And this is the exact same philosophy. On a smaller scale, of course, we are applying in TKDP. So it's not about just adding a staff member, it's about adding the right staff member and the right partner to the office. And the people who always tick the box of my business formula of success: passion, attitude, and skills. I'll quickly take you through key projects we did as a team at the office. So the first one was the one I mentioned, King Abdullah Performing Arts Center in Jordan, which was a competition we won over Snohetta and other big offices. It was an international competition. And the idea was, at that time, Zaha wanted to reflect something from the heritage and history of Jordan. So we looked at Petra and how we can mimic and capture the beauty of that kind of rose city in our design. And the site was very challenging. The site was basically, it's a valley. I don't know if you can see the cursor, but basically it was a valley in the old city center in Amman, the capital. And you have a hill on the right side and the hill on the left side of the project. And the project is a performing arts theater. So they're kind of a black box theater and galleries. And the idea was a theater is basically a stage and seats. So we converted that building to become the actual stage, and the city itself surrounded are the seats. So the building itself becomes the stage and the place of play and performance. And we established a very simple geometry, a very simple cube, a very kind of stretch cube, where we position our main theater and our small theater inside it, and we link them through galleries and bridges. But the actual lobby of the building, the actual public space of the building, becomes like open proscenium of the theater. So the entire city on the two sides of the hill at night, when there's a show inside the theaters, they also can see the people movement in the galleries and in the lobbies. So we engage the communities, and it's always about engaging communities with their building. When architects do designs and when architects build a building, they should not only think about the end users. They should not only think about who commissioned me to design the building, but before actually thinking about the end user who's paying our fee, is thinking about the community and the neighborhood and how our building can add to that, and how we can make sure that we're adding another successful milestone in the city skyline. And this is something also very important. So as you can see, this is just a visualization showing the idea of creating the building, converting the building itself into the theater, and the houses and the neighborhood around it become the seats or the audience watching the building. The second project we also was a milestone for us as a team at Zaha was BA headquarters. And as I said, this was a competition that we started in 2013-14, long time ago. And the project is small, but it shows also, and this is something giving the UAE and giving Sharjah as well, how much visionary they were and how much passionate and patient they were in kind of asking or trying to achieve excellency in the design. So the design was, I know it sounds a cliche, it's a desert, so let's do a sandy dune. But the point is how actually we can study the behavior of the sandy dunes based on the prevailing wind, etc., and try to mimic the sand dunes shapes, translating this into the actual form of the building. So we literally created a massive sandy dune within the desert that captures and includes all the offices spaces underneath. So the project now, if anybody drives now through Addaid Road, you can see the building. It's the exterior of the building is completed now. They are finishing now the interior, and I believe it's not because this is our design, and this is kind of, I consider my baby at Zaha, but I think this is going to change the face of architecture in the UAE at least, because it's a truly piece of art engineering as well. And this is something very important for students. We don't design out of space. We don't design without very, very strong collaborators and consultants. So each project is a product of structural engineers, mechanical engineers, specialists, facade consultants, people who help us so that we need them. And without them, we cannot design anything. We can do fancy shapes. Modeling is very easy these days. Anybody can model, anybody can script, but we need to work closely with specialists to translate our dreams into reality. And I've been blessed to work with a very skilled engineers from all over the world to develop that kind of masterpiece of architecture. It's a stretched sand dune with a lobby in the center for public, and we've accommodated the more public spaces on the two wings of the buildings, like a theater, offices, meeting rooms, and we pushed all the actual offices of the staff of BIA at the back spine of the building, split by a courtyard in the center, which is kind of an open courtyard with kind of sliding doors at the sides, encouraging the prevailing winds. This is a shot through the lobby area. As you can see, it's a double volume concrete shell, and we went through lots of challenges of how we can do a in situ cast concrete shell on site, and the amount of time and complexity and challenges we had in achieving that kind of product was absolutely spotless. So this is kind of comparison between the actual render of the lobby space and this is an old photo. This is maybe a year-old photo. I don't have a newer one for the interior, but it shows kind of how we move from a vision to reality, and how much we need to be honest and faithful to our vision and our design. This is a view through the office space, and as you can see, natural daylight has always been a key aspect of the project to make sure that workers work within a healthy environment and within the right space and the right environment. A different shot showing the complex shells geometry, the intersection of these shells, and the complex facade engineering work that we've been working together with our facade consultants, our structural engineers. On this project, we had Bureau Happel from the UK as our structure and facade consultants. This is a more recent photos of the project, which is nearly, I believe the completion of this project is going to be June, July this year. So we're so much excited and looking forward to actually visit the project once it's over. Different views from different angles. And again, imagination versus reality, and how much we need to be honest and fighting to make sure that we achieve our reality. As we say, designing, having fancy images, fancy sketches is so easy, but how we can maintain this image in reality, that's the challenge, and that's what differentiates good architects from average architects. This is another project that we worked on as well in Chancha. It's a museum and opera house, but our team, the team that you've seen the picture of, we were responsible of the museum of the building, and this is a real photo of the museum. And again, when we compare the render to the actual executed product, it's identical, and that's again how much we need to work hard to make sure that we achieve the desired results. After spending almost 11 years in London, 12 years, and after Zaha passed away, it was time for looking into different challenge and different kind of career progression. And that's when the office decided to open a Middle East office, a Middle East representation of Zaha Hadid Architects. So I moved to Dubai in 2016, end of 2016, to establish and head Zaha Hadid Architects Middle East and North Africa. And I think maybe some of the students, they visited the studio, I'm not sure, but we had a gallery and studio in one space. And I spent there 2 years almost to monitoring BIA project, other projects we had on site in Sharjah and in Dubai and Saudi Arabia, and also expanding the new business portfolio for the practice. But every architect, they have a dream at some time or somehow to have their own direction and their own print. And I always knew that I'm gonna have my own route in architecture and in career. So I think moving to the UAE, to the Middle East, was again a very important milestone in my life, because I started to realize that the market here and the competition here might accept such a kind of a way of thinking of architecture, and that's when the decision was to leave Zaha Hadid Architects after almost 13, 14 years, work closely for 10 years with Zaha, and the most important thing I've learned from working at that office is not how you draw a curve or how you design something. Absolutely not. The most important thing I've learned from all these years is to think out of the box and to make your research as the main and the one and only method of progressing in life. The way how to invest in people, young talents, and how to always deal with each project as a very unique, specific case. And this is something we apply in our office. None of the projects we receive and we work is a repeated scenario. We always have a research, and you can ask the team members we have now. You can ask your ex-colleagues at the university. We always do research, even if you are doing a villa or we are doing a master plan. We spend a good time in just doing research, like university research, about typologies, about methods, about architectural languages, and about the brief of the client, about the site, about the complexity, and about the client budget and the client vision, until we really achieve the ultimate goal. So the decision was to co-establish a design studio, TKDP. And again, I'll go back to this image, the team members picture again. And it's again how it's good to have a dream in your head and always keep nagging to achieve it. Never ever give up your dreams, whether they look ridiculous or not, but always find a way to achieve them. So I remember back in the days in 2013 and 14, or even before that, when Lee and myself were working at Zaha, we always said that one day we're going to start something together. And I was always telling Lee, like, let's do something in the future. Let's start our own business. Let's open something in Dubai, because I always knew that at some point I'm going to end up in Dubai. And we've been having that discussion a long time ago. So this was a photo that's been taken in 2013. And you can see Lee and myself here in this photo. We were young at that time. And then we managed to actually fulfill that dream and that vision. So we co-founded together the TKDP in 2019, and our vision was very clear. We are doing a high-end, it's a design-led bespoke architectural practice that literally meaning to serve communities, clients, and to make sure that we can adding another beauty of the puzzle of the region and the neighborhoods we are working in. So we established the office as a small, unique practice, working on high-end designs. We are now developing a few projects in China, in the Middle East, mainly UAE and Saudi Arabia. And it's a small studio, so we are around 6 people now, 6, 7. We are working with consultants or kind of contract basis people in China and in the UK as well, based on the project. But we are keeping a very linear process and a very kind of, thin layer of staffing, working on making sure that we have the luxury of time, which is the most important thing to develop our research. So we work together in developing projects, master plans, mixed-use projects, and the things both of us learned from working at Zaha, which is research, collaboration, investing in the young talents, is the best formula to work. And I just want to say this message to young architects, people now in the 3rd year, 4th year, approaching graduation. Don't underestimate the value you can add to any practice, and don't underestimate how much contribution you can have to your next career. Whether you work with somebody or work for yourself, you all have a treasure inside you that really, if you just know how to invest in it, it's going to be an outstanding results. And as I said previously, we have 2 of your ex-students at our studio, and they've already understood the system, they've already understood the research process, and they became a very important part of the studio and very important part of the growth of the studio, regardless when did they graduate. So it's not about the age or years of experience, it's about the passion and the attitude and the skills you have to develop. I'm going to quickly take you through some of the projects. Unfortunately, the most exciting projects we are working on now and the ones who are going to site very soon are confidential. So we couldn't get a permission from the clients to share them on any platform, not social media or lecturing. So I'm going to show you some of the projects that we are allowed to publish and to talk about this. So the first project is a mixed-use project in Dubai. And this is a very important project because it shows how sometimes you face, not every client comes to you like PIA or like Zaha's projects where they have a very relaxed budget, very big budget, and they are willing to invest. Sometimes clients come to you, especially in this region, they have a limited budget, but they have big dreams. So you either tell them, sorry, your budget is ridiculous, forget it, or you actually work hard in making sure that out of this limited budget, you can create something different. So our design philosophy that we design something neat, elegant, with a twist, with identity, to make sure that we give the client a niche or an upper hand of the product they are doing. So the project is a mixed use, was in Jumeirah on Al-Wasl Road, replacing an existing building. It's called Park and Shop on Al-Wasl Road. And you know, the urban fabric of Jumeirah is very kind of, it's low rise, it's dense, lots of villas, it's very pixelated typologies, and we didn't want to create a complete different alien to the site and the neighborhood. So we came up with the idea of how we can leverage on the neighborhood and on the kind of architectural context around us and start building some different exciting typologies. So we started a very tense modeling exercise, not modeling in terms of design, but massing exercises to understand how much we can utilize the site and how we can really come up with the best program and brief to fit the site, and what kind of massing gives us the chance to develop this into an interesting architectural layout. So we came with the idea of how we can utilize and maximize the usage of the site, so the client makes use of the building and the site, and their investment on the return of the investment works for them. So we came up with the idea of how to, also we didn't want to create a block or a complete building that blocks everything and views and connectivity within the surrounding neighborhood. So we came up with the idea of how we create an inner community, a community within the community. So you have the bigger Jumeirah community, and then we create our own inner community within the building. So we came up with the idea of creating a passages or a kind of walk through the building where it becomes community areas, courtyards, where public can use and can go through, and at the same time, the community, the residents of the building itself, they can benefit from. So we created this idea of how we can create a pedestrian path through the site, and then how we can start subtracting these areas from the mass in creating open spaces, and then how you start having a bit of articulation for these masses to create balconies, terraces, different levels, and then how you populate the landscape and that kind of public area into more interesting kind of architectural solution. So this is not BIA, this is not a kind of fluid dynamic design, but in the same time, you can create with a limited budget a bespoke product than the one that you can see around you. And as you can see, we looked into basic fundamental aspects of the design of looking at sustainability. So we didn't want just to create a glass box or just curtain walls like all these towers you can see in Dubai and in the GCC, but actually how we can create a sustainable solutions, double skin facade that can filter the light and also filter the heat gain inside the apartments. So actually you create a very self-shaded system product. And as you can see, this is the walkway that we created across the site. So it became a kind of small courtyards, small hubs, cantilevered areas, shaded areas. So even if it's summer, it's still more pleasant to be inside because of all the shaded and intimate and the proximity of the spaces around. And this is just a view showing kind of, the composition within the Jumeirah area and how you can see kind of, you know, like the canopies and the courtyards within the geometry. So as you can see, we created a pathway through the site, and then we bridged the two elements or the two sides of the project by high luxury penthouses in the center, carried into columns. So nothing expensive. We don't have a huge cantilever. It's basic columning system carrying these penthouses, but it creates a nice colonnade area that allows people to be shaded and that allow people to move within the different building parts where you have retail, restaurants, cafes on the ground floor, and all the residents on the top. They can also enjoy a small community, an intimate community out of Jumeirah busy road and noisy road. We work, as we say, closely with consultants, specialists, so also been looking about the shading of the balconies and how we create a shading system that doesn't only give you shading from the sun, but also give you privacy. So you can sit outside on your balcony. You are benefiting from the fresh air, from the light, but at the same time gives you complete privacy behind these perforated screens. Also activating the roof by creating roof gardens, swimming pool, and as you can see, it's about visual connectivity. So the entire kind of design, the entire building is completely integrated and completely connected, and there's a huge synergy between all the parts of the project. I'm just gonna quickly play the animation of the project for you. I hope the music, you can hear the sound of the video. The animation was running very smoothly on my computer. I'm not sure if it was the same on yours, but I hope it was.
Actually, Tarriq, I think the video might not have been, there was some lag, I believe. But I'm also concerned about the time, so.
Sure, I'm running quickly, yeah. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The second also, another huge milestone for us was the Pushing Master Plan competition. It's an international competition. The office won 6 months after establishing in China. We were competing against big names, and actually we were competing against Zaha, the architect. So this was a huge milestone for us and it allowed us to enter the international market as a master planners. So we've designed. We came up with the idea of how we create a horizontal city, completely balancing the vertical city, which is the series of towers on the site. So we created a multi-layers design of parks, platforms, gardens, etc., that allows again the community of Shenzhen and the neighboring areas to completely benefit from the site, keeping the journeys between the different areas around the site continuous without any interruption. And while the actual city, the actual design sits on a platforms, multi-layer platform. So as you can see, we started by the basic exercise of massings, maximizing the usage of the site by designing all the towers masses on these plots, then start orienting these towers to maximize the views and enhance the cross ventilation and all the sustainable requirements in terms of sun direction, etc. And then gradually start creating these multi-layer platforms of retail, parks, bridges, connecting the various parts of the project together. So as you can see, we created this kind of a complete horizontal city of shops, retail, parks, roads, tying and connecting the actual vertical design and the vertical city represented in the towers. Multi-towers connected over bridges and platforms and sky platform layouts to enhance the views and to enhance kind of the observing the skyline of Shenzhen. Community is a core part of our design, so we wanted to, apart from designing the commercial aspect of the project, which is the offices, the hotel, the expensive apartments, also creating public areas, parks, where people who have nothing to do with the project, who are not renting or buying in these products, can benefit from going and enjoying the surrounding and the master plan. Different views showing the skyline of the project, and the client said that we managed to win, and the client's been testing this site over 2 years, and the client told us that we managed to win the project because we addressed 3 key points for them. The wow factor, which is like an iconic design. We also addressed their figures and their feasibility studies and their finance. And the third thing, that we managed to bring the community of Shenzhen within our project. So even the government, when they saw the design, they felt that this client and this developer is contributing to the city more than taking from it. And we did lots of studies for these towers to make sure that we're maximizing the efficiency, the relationship between the core and the multiple segments of the towers. So as we say, every single part of our projects and design is based on continuous research. I'm not going to run the animation because I think it's going to be the same client, because it's about building a trust and confidence with the client. So the same client decided to give us our second master plan as a commission. So we also tried to create the same kind of principle of creating multiple layers, connecting the different parts of the master plan and the different towers through bridges, through platforms, and through entertainment areas for the residents, for the users, and also for the community around the project. And we move from master plans, 1 million square meter master plan, to private villas and private residence. So this is a villa we've been doing in La Mer area. It's a very monolithic exterior, very basic silhouette of the villa, but we leverage and we invest in actually of the interior of the villa. So we created something very discreet, very subtle from outside, but we invested in creating a sculpture for the users inside the villa by creating an organic staircase that connects the basement to the ground floor to the first floor of the villa. Different views of the interior, and again showing that it's not about repeating a certain design language. It's about how you can make use of each space and each shot and each corner you design and creating something interesting and something viable. It's the basement area, and you can see the beginning of the sculptured staircase that takes you from the basement entrance after the parking area, the garage, all the way to the ground floor and to the first floor of the project. And this is something we also did. I mean, I'm not sure the animation is going to play. So this is a project also we participated and we did for the Dubai Design Week. And I mean, this is a massive contribution. All the credit goes to Sarah and to Ahmed on working in this project, because this was their initiative, and they actually. I was personally hesitant of participating in the Dubai Design Week and about designing something there, but this is again showing how passion is important. So they've been pushing me that no, let's do it, let's participate, let's try to create something different, and we created this kind of design of how we can have an interactive flooring system that can be used in public areas, in squares, in the landscape, to alert people and work during the pandemic time, especially the time we live in. I think maybe some people, they saw this in the exhibition, of how we can activate certain cellular system within the tiling, within the flooring, that can differentiate and can protect and trace people's behaviors based on temperature, fever, etc., that can alert people of certain danger zones within socializing. So it basically allows people to socialize, but also with the precautions and with safety measures. And this was a huge success for us, this exhibition. It's been featured on the BBC, it's been featured on the CNN. So again, we are a young office, 2 years, but we managed to win international competitions. We managed to be featured on the CNN, BBC, AD, and other kind of architectural platforms. So again, I'm just finishing the presentation with this project because it shows how young talents can also add a lot to the architectural career and to the architectural practice. So sorry, I ran longer than I should, but sometimes I tend to talk a lot. So thank you, Shamil, for reminding me of the time. I finished, and I'm happy if there are any questions or any points you would like to raise.
Thank you, Tarriq, for that very insightful journey. I have to say, it also took me back to my times at the AA and the GRL, the intensity and all that. So I really appreciate you sharing your journey so far. So I'd like to open the floor to the Q&As. So if you have any questions, please use the Q&A chat interface. We have one question here, Tarriq.
Sure.
To what extent do you think designing out of the box is easy to be achieved and accepted in the industry?
I mean, depends what you mean by out of the box. Like when I say out of the box, you don't create, we are not reinventing the wheel, you know? Forms are forms, shapes are shapes, geometries are geometries. It's how you put these things together, how you make, how you translate a conventional brief of a client to an unconventional translation. So when I say out of the box, it doesn't mean that I need to come up with a shape that doesn't exist before, but it's how to make the best out of the basic ingredients you have for you. So whether the budget is stretched or whether the budget is relaxed, you always can find a niche in your design to make sure that it stands out. I mean, the competition is massive around the world, but I do believe that if we really tap into small details of the design, it could be one element, it could be the facade element, it could be a landscape element that really can feature your design and can make it stand out. Out of the box, the most important thing that don't put limits to the thinking. Don't put limit that, oh, I mean, like, I don't think this is going to work. Well, you need to try it before you actually decide if it's going to work or not. So it's always pushing the boundaries of thinking.
Right. On those lines, what is the client's perception of the out of the box? Maybe certain times there are this disconnect between what an architect thinks is unique and a good opportunity versus what a client thinks, and how do you mitigate these differences, or how lucky are you that they are synced?
We've been not lucky, but I mean, luck is important, but also we managed the most important thing. If you speak with the client their language, if you got to present your project to the client and to tell them, because I think this looks cool and I think this is looking good and this is iconic, they will not buy it. But if you manage to explain this and sell them this product according to their vision, according to their budget, according to their feasibility, to give them the feeling that what you are doing, adding a value to their project, they're going to buy it 100%. Of course, you will not go to them and you tell them, I'm going to add the skylight that costs you 100 million dirham and he's going to buy it. But if you link every single design aspect of the project with something tangible to their mentality, you need to speak people's language. If your client is a banker, you need to speak figures and link your design, your out-of-the-box design into figures. If your client is a doctor, there's always a kind of systematic way of approaching your, and that's why you need to make a research. Who is your client? Before going to a meeting, you need to understand who's your client, what do they like, what they don't like, and you need to, at the same time, you need to stand for your opinion. So otherwise, we will be like any of these architects, just stamping, and the architect is telling them, I saw a villa on, I don't know, Sheikh Zayed Road, I want something like this, but I like the entrance of that villa, which I saw on Al-Wasl, but I like the entrance of, and then you have a kind of a mixed design. You need to stand out, and the architects, the clients should understand and should feel your confidence. This is the most important. Once the client doesn't feel you're confident about what you're talking about, you're done.
Great. Yeah, I completely relate to that. And the research about the client is very important too. Going to the next question. Good evening. You speak a lot about improving communities and overall human interactions in several projects. As architect and designer in the UAE, do you think the existing architecture contributes to this methodology? If not, how can it be improved spatially as an architecture and at an urban intervention?
I mean, I think there's a trend now in the architecture in the region to address communities more and more. Before that, people were thinking individually, and that's where when you go to areas in Dubai, like Business Bay, like downtown, like etc., it was about the kind of the end users, only about creating a cluster around you, a bubble around you, basically, without really understand how you link it to the surroundings. So, and also the architectural typology. There was a trend or understanding that going high, skyscrapers, is the right way of approaching modern architecture and modern cities. With towers, it's very hard to create communities. You can create, one floor and then the tower for a clubhouse or for a kind of community area. But now the trends in Dubai is going for more low-rise and villas and townhouses and communities. And that takes us back to the actual niche and actual kind of trend of an urban kind of societies and kind of urban configuration. So I think the trend and understanding of communities is improving in the region, and we believe that's why it's one of the core messages we are trying to achieve in the office. It's not there yet, but I think there's more understanding towards engaging communities.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for that, Tarriq. The next two questions are quite related to each other. I think this is from students. They would like to know that you mentioned fresh graduates or interns are good asset to any firm, but sometimes ideologies do not match. So how do you take the students? How do you take that scenario? And I think
ideology doesn't work.
Would be one piece of advice that you would give students that they should follow.
I mean, I'm not sure, but what does he or she means by ideology doesn't work? Like we had the scenario. I mean, I'm just talking about us. We had interns. We had a few interns in the office, and the point is, I mean, like sometimes also you need the person who's smart enough to understand if there's something can come out of these people or not. So you put them into tests, and when I say test, you don't actually give them, I want to do this. You finish it tomorrow, and I'll see the results. No, but it's about engaging them into conversations, discussions, and sometimes we talk with our interns about life, about normal things. So we don't just talk about architecture, because what gets out of their mouth at this young age can tell you a lot about their character and the way of thinking. And for me, it's the way of thinking, not about the architecture. Skills can be gained. Talent is very hard to be gained. So we don't teach our students. We try to inspire students.
Okay.
You cannot teach architecture. You cannot teach it. You cannot teach talent. You can flourish it. You can push it. You can polish it. But and that's when you see some students are better than the others. So obstacles, honestly, we don't see obstacles. I think the most fun I personally see working with interns and young students, because they are very passionate, and they don't take. It's very hard for them to say no, because they are eager to work hard and they're eager to impress. And that's the best thing, and especially if you are working with the right people. One piece of advice I give for students, I mean, it's a few advices, but I will summarize them. That I said this at the beginning of the talk. Honestly, I mean, like, I don't want to sound like a party pooper, but you are not into fun stage, yeah? If you are gonna think you will go to your studio and then go back home, chill out with your friends, watch Netflix, you do your homework a bit, you do your assignment, go back, that doesn't work for architecture. And I'm not trying to sound boring, but it's a full-time job from the day you decided to go to the school. And sometimes I used to give advices to first-year students and tutors at universities. They used to hate me for that. If you are not sure, jump after the train. because it's a very, very demanding profession, very demanding profession. So spend every single time in investing in your skills, digital skills. Nobody's gonna hire you because you got A in design. People will hire you. I'm not asking them to fail. I'm sorry. I don't want to upset you, Shamil, and the rest of the faculty members.
I'm kind of thinking the other way around. It sort of resonates with what we tend to say in the studio, and also as reason we had an all-school meeting where we're talking about the intensity of the architecture program and how they should be sort of embracing it rather than battling it.
Like, again, I'm always giving, like, even here, the team members we have, they both joined, and I'm talking about them a lot because it's a life example for me. Yeah.
Right.
Some of them joined with zero knowledge of certain software, zero. And now in 2 months, they're expert. And we don't teach them. And I don't think it's not your job even to teach them. Every student has a lot of free time. They're not married, they have no families, they have nothing in life. So sit and develop your skills. And again, I'm not trying to sound harsh, but if you really, because the competition is so high, there's millions of students around the world. And there are millions of CVs floated around the world. If you don't have something different, it's difficult.
Right, yeah. Okay, we're going to move to the next one, final question here. If you have any questions, please, this is your last chance. Please do put in the Q&A chat. One question we have here, Tarriq, is when do you decide to finalize on a design? Since design can always be developed, when do you say, okay, this is where you stop?
When we have a deadline.
Yes.
No, based on the stage, I mean, at the concept stage and schematic stage, we always have it, and that's why we develop concept stage, schematic stage, design development stage, and construction document. So at the concept stage and the schematic stage, the project and the client brief and the client understand that there's a room for a change. Once the project passes the schematic stage, where the cost is pretty much locked and the engineering is pretty much locked, there's little room so that's why our office, we don't do detailed design and construction document. We collaborate with local architects for the mass production, but we are heavily involved in the early concept schematic. That's when the design has been developed and progressed.
Okay, I have one question for you, Tarriq.
Sure.
And this is regarding the projects that you've shown us. And you also mentioned that you move practice from Zaha to your own practice. So in terms of the challenges that you face between each project, each of them have different scale, and also they're also from different region for that point. What were the key challenges that you had in each of this project?
Key challenge, I mean, the first key challenge we face as an office is that we are a young office. Yeah, I do have a track record of working for Zaha, but as Tarriq, and I mean, I won't always stress that it's myself and Lee. I mean, Chowchin Lee, he's my business partner, and he co-founded the office. He's the design director of the office, and I mean, we did this from scratch together. The main challenge that we are a young office. We didn't build anything under our name. So everything's been under Zaha. And I've realized that I need to face reality, because previously when I was going to meetings, I was going under a huge name. So doors were getting open for me, but now I need to go under, we have our reputation, our CV, but it's a new, so this was the first challenge. But I think we were so lucky and we worked hard that after every first meeting with the clients understand that we are working with professional people, they're experienced, and we are talking their language, and we are talking about how this young office, this young practice is basically based on a very solid experience, and for them that's the key thing clients are looking for.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for that last question for the day. I think maybe a very interesting one, probably coming from somebody who's really interested in history here. How can modern architecture be combined with beauty of the ancient Muslim art? And I think this is also coming from Zaha's works, where there's close proximity to calligraphy and Arabic art.
Yeah, this is a tricky one because I don't want to sound controversial. I don't personally believe there's anything called Islamic architecture or Ottoman architecture or Renaissance architecture. I believe architecture is a progression of different styles and different languages and different characters that's been shaped into cities and regions. So any element of the Islamic architecture, I'm a huge fan of the Islamic architecture. I mean, what we call it Islamic architecture, for me, I remember when I went to Alhambra Palace in Granada, I was an architect at that time. I was at Zaha. And I think this was the first time I questioned myself if I can be called an architect, because I've seen a beauty I've never seen in my life where people did it without computers. So, but if you look at all these elements of the Islamic architecture, basically they are based on a development of previous architecture, whether it's the Renaissance or Baroque or a Greek architecture. So it's just because, I mean, people were traveling that time and people were kind of, they have different backgrounds. So how we see modern architecture now translated into, or kind of, taking some elements from the Islamic architecture or the ancient architecture, is how, for example, we can design shell structure. Shells is based on vaults, on domes, how we can translate this into more parametric kind of, approach, for example, of arches and shells that can be done in a more systematic way and then can be done in a more kind of mass production way. How we can look at elements like arches, for example, into more kind of 3D elements that could be done on a small scale, that could be part of a window, or it could be done on a bigger scale as part of the building. So, as I said, I don't like to give labels to architecture. I don't like to call architecture like Islamic, modern, postmodern. For me, it's just the progression of it. Maybe you can take a snapshot at certain eras and certain times, but for me, it's a continuous research.
Oh, okay. Thanks for that, Tarriq. Unfortunately, we are run out of time. We're actually way out. Thank you for taking time and showing insights into your work and practice and your journey. Really appreciated and enjoyed the presentation today. I would like to now hand over to Harpreet, who will close this session.
Thank you, Shamil.
Thank you. Tarriq, thank you very, very much. I was in fact speaking to my students and I was like, you're going to be speaking to them just at the right time, because as students of architecture, I think it becomes very challenging for them sometimes in the design studio, very overwhelming. And it's really nice to go through that entire journey of you going through that entire process and then establishing your own practice. And I think it's a good reminder for all of us and also the students that being an architect and then having your own practice is a long, patient process. It is not
it's painful.
It's painful. It does not happen overnight. And there are no shortcuts, that's what I always keep reminding them. There is no shortcut. So it was really inspiring to hear you. And I'm sure our students are definitely inspired after listening to you, because I think it is very important that they become masters or an ongoing process of mastering that art, which is very important, and being patient is very important. So thank you very, very much. I'm sure the students are going to be leaving today and probably pondering over all the projects and the process that you go through, because I believe more important than the final product or the project itself is that process that you have gone through and how enjoyable and passionate that process has actually been. So thank you so much, and we hope to see you in some of our juries, and thank you for taking out the time to speaking to